It's movie time with John DeSando and his friends online. So everything is gonna be just fine. From the top down to the bottom. He's gonna let you know if you should stay home or if you should go. Might even yell if it's a spectacle. From San Francisco to Long Island. 'Cause nothing's better than a motion video.
It's Movie Time is produced and hosted by John DeSando. Listen to broadcast shows Fridays at 4:01 and 8:01 p.m. Read reviews and listen to shows online at WCBE.org.
I'm John DeSando,
And I'm Mary Yerina.
and this is It's Movie Time. Mary, we've been on, at least It's Movie Time has been on for almost 25 years.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And they never booted us off.
Are you anticipating a change in fortune?
Well, we've been very careful with our selections to make sure that they're sophisticated enough, but yes, more acceptable for a general audience. And we have one that's probably not as acceptable as most that we've ever had.
It's certainly on the edge.
Yeah, it's called Anora, and the titular character calls herself Ani. And yeah, Mary, there are hundreds, well, at least more than 100 films about prostitutes.
But
over the
she's
years.
not a prostitute.
Oh boy, that's something we could argue. I realize that she at worst is an escort, otherwise that she's a sex worker, right?
Her job is to work in a gentleman's club and
Yeah.
perform lap dances and
Yeah.
pole dances and other erotic acts, but technically she's not a prostitute.
And I'm aware when I said that, but yet when I see what she does in the evenings, I think she's a prostitute in the evenings, as an escort. But I mean it's probably just as controversial as the very movie itself. Our arguing about that is because this is so how shall I say, it's so unnerving, at least in half of the movie.
Yeah, the film opens where we meet Ani working at a gentleman's club called HQ, which is an actual club, and this was shot on site in the Brighton Beach area of New York. We see her just moving through this gentleman's club, approaching gentlemen when she gets interest, hustling them into a private room for a lap dance. At one point she's even, a gentleman's interested in her and he doesn't have any cash, and so she's like, well, let's go to the ATM, which apparently there is one on site.
Yes.
So we are following her for a good, first 5 minutes that open the film, so that we get an understanding that she is a professional sex worker and how she treats her job, but we're not told how she ended up there. We're not given any of her background. We just are given the context of this is who this young 23-year-old woman is now.
Yeah, and the parents, when they find out, I mean, eventually you have to know that the nub of this is that they impulsively get married in Las Vegas.
Well, so in part of her role, she actually speaks Russian.
Yeah.
And so the club owner or manager approaches her about a Russian client who's now in the club, and because she's the only one who speaks Russian due to her grandmother never learning to speak English, she is asked to approach Ivan, or Vanya as he likes to be called.
Yeah.
And he's a young Russian ne'er-do-well, son of oligarchs, and is supposedly in the United States to study, but he's really just continuing to party and play video games and spend his parents' money. And they end up together.
Dad and Mom find out
They
that
do.
they get married. Now they call her a hooker.
They do call her.
Yeah, a hooker. So again, back to our discussion, and I find it so interesting. But how is it that Dad and Mom, who is so controlling, lets him? Do they pay the bills? Do they have any idea for what it costs to rent this mansion that this kid has? And
well, it is their mansion. I don't know if they own it or are renting it.
Yeah. But
it
the
is
parties,
their mansion.
the bills, anyway, it's just so hard for me. Then all of a sudden, they come all the way across to annul the marriage, and what you suddenly realize what this kid is doing. Anyway.
Well, they don't, because I think we spend the first part of the film watching her in her profession, watching her connect with Vanya.
Yeah.
He, in a scene very reminiscent of Pretty Woman, which many have made comparisons, although Pretty Woman is a Disney film compared to this.
It is.
But they negotiate her spending a week with him and what that would cost.
Yeah.
And she agrees to do it. They live this lavish, wild, go to Las Vegas, party with friends lifestyle. And while they're in Vegas, he asks her on a whim to marry him. And they do get married, come back to New York. And I don't know how long they're back in New York, but that leads to Vanya's godfather, an Armenian hired by the family to kind of keep
Priest,
tabs
actually.
on him.
Yeah.
And he...
A great role, I have to say.
And that's where the film really changes its tone. This is billed as a romantic comedy. I personally didn't find it that romantic, but the comedy that starts with the role of Toros, the godfather,
Yes.
his brother Garnik, and Igor, who they also hire to kind of babysit
these
Vanya, it really gets funny, and they invade the home to put a stop to the marriage.
They're like the Three Stooges.
They are.
And they're fixers for the dad. And it'll give you an idea how distant the parents are really from the daily activity of, their son.
Sure.
And that is where it really takes off for me. I'll tell you, I find the first part of it boring. I find I get it after a while. He's a kid like a Jesse Eisenberg type, but he's actually dangerous. He's so out of it, Vanya.
Well, he's somebody who's been raised in a wealthy family without any sense of duty or accountability or moral compass, and so after they have sex, he's playing video games, and he has sex like it's a video game, and she actually has to coach him on how to actually have better sex.
Right, yeah.
So it's an interesting dynamic as they're developing their relationship, and you see the lavish party, over-the-top party that he throws at the mansion. And the parents clearly know and understand because they've hired babysitters to watch over him. And at the New Year's Eve party, you see them off in a side room just kind of quietly observing what's going on and making sure it doesn't get out of hand, because you can tell that they've been through this numerous times before.
Oh,
and
yeah.
so the parents clearly know and are allowing him just to go.
Who runs that family, you think?
Oh, the mother. Completely the mother. She's the one who's on the phone with the godfather, asking what happened, telling them to get the marriage annulled. And when they get off the plane, their private jet that brings them to New York, she's the first one off the plane, and she is the one controlling everything. So his father Nikolai may be the oligarch, but the mother Galina is the one running things.
I love that moment when Dad just cracks up at the stupidity and Mikey Madson's interpretation of Ani is just terrific.
It's a terrific
she is
performance.
great. So when she starts to
when she talks back to Galina,
the old man is he just loves it.
Because she's the only one who's had the temerity to do that, apparently.
Yeah. And there are some things like her relationship with with Igor, the third fixer, which is really a very subtle part of this film.
Very subtle, and the final scene, which I don't want to spoil, is between those two characters, and it's lovely.
Yeah. So that again, that controversial first part, for me, what it achieves, way too long, is really the stupidity of young people sometimes, or when I was young, and what we thought might be love, or when we were so privileged that it didn't make any difference whether we made a smart decision. We just had. Now, she is certainly an attractive young woman, and if you can put aside the fact that she's a sex worker, she is certainly someone whom you would pay attention to if you were a young man such as Vanya is.
Well, and she's, I think the part of the first part, which I agree with you, I thought went too long.
Yeah.
This is a 2 hour and 19-minute film,
Right.
and it didn't need to be that long.
No, right.
To provide what that first part provides in terms
Mm-hmm.
of the context of Ani's present life.
Yes.
And I think the thing that was interesting about going through that with her and seeing how she works and how she is out on the floor versus how she is with management in the dressing room when they're off the floor. I mean, she's talking about, I'll work more hours when you provide health care and a 401k. And so she's very much like in control, and she's in control of the hustles. And I think what ends up happening with this young Russian spoiled brat is that she has hopes that he really loves her and is going to stand by her, and he completely crumbles when the home invasion happens.
Oh yeah, he's weak.
He runs out of the house and leaves her there to deal with the 3 gentlemen, and there's a really no holds bar. She shows what a fighter and scrappy person she is and how strong she is. But in the end, she gets hustled by him. And that's the poignant part at the end, where that realization of her hopes and dreams, and she was hustled by
Yes.
him, even though she's a hustler herself.
All right, Mary Yerina, I think we have some more things to say.
We do, because we haven't even talked about the film's writer, director, producer,
Sean
and caster,
Baker.
Sean Baker.
Yeah, and let's do that. And you have to go to our podcast,
Back Talk.
and WCBE.org. But Mary, not that you haven't already, what do you suggest?
Well, it's a complex film. It's very enjoyable after you reach the point of where the screwball comedy starts.
Yes.
Whether or not you see the film needs to be your own personal
Sure.
judgment, because I think you need to be comfortable with sexuality and nudity for that first 30 minutes or so of the film.
Yeah.
With John DeSando and his friends online, so everything is gonna be just fine. From the top down to the bottom, he's gonna let you know